What are your experiences in that? I know a lot of your first year mentees or mentors. Sorry.
Being that mentor and like being a limit on how much of a friend you can be. So not like being, well, you can be best friends, but not to just jump into that, to be a mentor first.
I recall from my first session that I really had to establish like a line with my mentee, like what was appropriate for us to talk about and what was not, and pretty much what we were going to be going over like through each session, like each week. Because I noticed a lot of times they'll get personal with you sometimes, and sometimes the conversation can like sway from sway off topic. So I try to like let them know, like, if you want to talk about something like that, maybe outside of maybe with one of your friends or outside of this session, and maybe we can.
Yeah, I hear some similarity between what you just stated and what Nick said, having some boundaries.
Well, like the mentee, I don't think personally before I even know them, is not really like someone that I'm like I don't really want to meet with them. Like they aren't similar to me. Like all these like things that I thought I wasn't gonna like about them, and then going into the meeting and like just being able to like whatever it is about them, trying to like I guess make it a positive out of everything about them.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing. Anyone else? Good comments.
So now I would like you to like text what you feel is what you feel your mentee feels is most important and determining a good fit and making sure that they feel that the relationship is safe. So do you feel they're going to be safer and more open if you say are similar in relation to like your major or like your socioeconomic background or maybe some other category? Has everyone got a chance to share? Okay, so a lot of you chose cultural background. Ooh.
Look at a few more moments to for everybody to get their votes in.
Is everyone ready now?
Anybody need additional moment? Good? Okay.
Okay. So a lot of you chose cultural background and major. So would anyone like to elaborate on why you think, say, cultural background or major will be a really major aspect for where your protege will connect with you and feel safe and feel comfortable sharing, and why that you feel that is important to them?
Just an example might be learning methods. So how I might try to teach someone from a different culture, they're not used to learning that way, or maybe they prefer not to learn that way. Maybe they prefer to be taught to a certain way, or so you don't know because we don't understand. That's all.
So you're really speaking on cultural competence,
Yeah.
okay? Okay, which is a legitimate concern, and some people feel more comfortable being mentored, or if you're a mentor, some mentors may feel more comfortable having someone of the same ethnic background, same race, because of those differences, which really speaks to why we need to be culturally competent, because we don't know who we may end up mentoring, but that's a very, very good point.
I said major because like I'm more knowledgeable of what's expected of them, so I feel like I can help them more and like I understand like kind of like what they're going through a little bit more.
Got quite a few hands over here, and I think some over here.
She basically covered it.
Oh, well, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I said major too, just because, I mean, I think that would make them more comfortable with you, with the information you're giving them. Like, they might feel like, well, she's been through these same classes, so it might make them a little more comfortable.
I understand actually Nick what he said about cultural background. I think it could extend to major with the learning styles, because like I'm a math major and I have like 20 students up for all different majors that I'm with, and like if I'm a very visual learner and trying to give study skills towards my learning style, like it to give a lot of examples for really auditory learners or kinesthetic people.
Okay, yes.
So like, just to build study skills as
Mhm.
freshmen.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I was just gonna say that I think it depends on what the goal is for the mentee in the relationship,
Mhm.
probably. So it could be if it was more of an academic focus, then major maybe would be more important than cultural background. But if it's more of, I don't know, there's more like social goals depending on what the person's needs are, then maybe it could be something that's more related to gender or cultural background or hobbies or whatever. So.
Okay.
I think you hit on a really great point that really sums up what we're talking, or what we're getting at with this question, is that you really need to be aware of what your mentees' goals are and ask them, and make sure that you're asking them and they're giving you an open and honest answer. Because depending on like what the program is or what their perception of your program is, that could really shape like how they view as a mentor, how they feel, how effective they feel you will be, and also how open they're going to engage with you in conversation, things like that.
Yeah, all great comments. Thank you very much. So we're going to move forward, and I'd like for you to take a moment or two. We're going to do the think, pair, share activity again. So either the person to the left or the right or the front or the back of you. Just have a quick conversation. And what do you feel, a mentee or protege, what do you feel what their roles should be in the mentoring relationship, the success of that relationship? Just take about a couple minutes, and then we're going to come back and have some open discussion about that. Okay, are we ready to come back together? Somebody said, okay, let's give a couple more, another minute, one more minute. Okay, about 30 more seconds, start summing up your conversation. We're going to have some open discussion. Okay, so let's come back together.
So you can like put himself in the shoes of the mentee and like understand what he's going through. And then one for the mentee would be to be open-minded, not be entrenched in his own views. Like if he can see that what he's doing is not working and accept some of the mentor's advice.
Okay, okay. Had you seen this presentation?
No.
The last thing we had was to come in with a positive attitude. Don't come in thinking, well, this mentee is a different major, so, you know, maybe he won't understand what I'm gonna be teaching him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Both of you, actually.
Okay, well, I had said that, it's kind of like the whole horse, like you can take the horse to the water, but you can't force him to drink.
Mhm.
So if like the mentee doesn't want my help, like doesn't wanna take the skills I'm helping them with and trying to show them and like make them relevant to their lives, like it's obviously not gonna do anything.
Okay,
We talked about the same thing.
okay, all right. Over here, comments?
Alright,
Yes.
so in my mentoring, it's kind of it's a mandatory requirement that they attend the session for their class. So that kind of brings in the issue of, I don't want to be here because it's mandatory.
Mhm.
So basically what I do is that I set ground rules at the beginning, like even if you don't want to be here, that's okay, I still ask that you participate, because some people might want to be here. It's a group session, and if you participate in the group work, it's going to help your peers, even though that you might want to be here. So.
Do you find that particularly challenging to get them to participate?
Depends on the semester.
Mhm.
There's a possibility some of you might want to be here, so don't mess it up for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like this semester, since it's the off semester for my course, it's usually higher up students. So they're a little more reluctant, but last semester there was new students, so they were a little bit more willing to go for the group work.
Okay, okay, excellent. One or two more over here? Yes?
We talked about active listening, really the mentors should have more of the active listening part,
Mhm.
listen to the mentee. We also discussed to articulate the change, because sometimes change happens and one person or the other doesn't know the change happened. So keeping that open line of communication is essential. And then we also talked about silence, because sometimes silence, although you're talking, being quiet is okay. Because there's that time that void doesn't need to be filled with anything. It's just a time to reflect.
Process.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that's a very good point. Silence is not always a bad thing. It's sometimes the person needs to take an opportunity to process, to think, to reflect, and that could be very fruitful in terms of you know, what a person can bring to the relationship. You don't necessarily want a person just jumping in and shooting from the hip, because that may not be appropriate either.
No.
I disagree.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so just a couple of things real quick. Just the mentee-mentor roles and responsibility. Having the mentee be responsible for, or have an understanding of what their roles are in the relationship can go a long way in having a very fruitful and successful mentoring relationship. Each of you understanding your respective roles, I think, is more important to establish at the very beginning, okay, than try to rectify or correct later on in the relationship. So, how do they look? How will the roles and responsibilities of both the mentor and the mentee, how will they look? So we have a table we're gonna go to in a moment, and just focusing on the mentee. Turn it over to Felicia, she's gonna take us to this next slide.
So essentially, this is a list of roles that we put between the mentee and the mentor. By no means is this all inclusive. I know there's a lot more that you can probably think of if we have more time, but essentially they're all relate to each other. So your mentee, you want them to be able to articulate what their interests are. And then as a mentor, this allows you to actively listen to them and facilitate like them in pursuing those interests and reaching out to resources that would actually be beneficial to them. Also with like articulating their goals, you would, as a mentor, it is our job to evaluate and assess them and make sure that they're getting places. But you can't do that if your mentee can't articulate what their goals are, or even articulate what their concerns are in relation to their classes. So if for academic mentors, if your mentee never tells you that, say this class is stressing me out, or I'm having trouble understanding XYZ concept, that inhibits you from actually being able to perform your job. And so it's important for them to know that, hey, you are responsible for telling me if you're having concerns. You're responsible for telling me if you have a goal. That way I can help you achieve it. And the list continues with all the other ones. Another one is being accountable and being responsible. You want to make sure that they know they are accountable to themselves and you, and they should be responsible for their actions and making sure that this relationship is successful. So I think those are two of the most important ones. And if you, in the initial meeting with them, could establish that with them and have this conversation, it can make your relationship a lot more fruitful. So we're going to continue. And so we're going to do another poll. So of these mentee roles, which one have you had the most trouble with getting your mentee to actually perform?
Be honest.
As a mentor or like maybe?
So essentially, say I'm a mentor and I have a group of mentees. What do I have trouble getting them to do? Am I having trouble getting most of my mentees to provide facts? Am I having trouble getting them to be accountable for things? What you as a mentor, what are you having trouble or have had the most trouble getting your mentees to actually do?
Keep in mind, these are the qualities or the roles that they should be playing or bringing to the relationship.
Okay. So, does anyone need any more time? So, anyone else? Okay. So we're tied for being responsible and following through. And I know this can be a really big thing because I know as mentors, both academic and social mentors, you give resources to your mentees and you tell them, hey, you need to go here if you have this trouble, or oh, this is a really good opportunity for you, but they don't follow through. And it'll be 3 weeks later, and you'll be like, hey, did you go do X, Y, Z? And they're like, nope, what was that resource again? So essentially, if you know that these are the troubles you're having with your mentee, or the greatest troubles you're having with your mentees as a whole, maybe this is where, oh, it's James even more. Maybe these are points where you as a mentor need to like focus and be more attentive to having actual conversations with them. And maybe that means having an extended conversation with all of your mentees saying, hey, like, we're going to talk about following through, and this is what I'm going to hold you accountable for. This is what your responsibility is in a relationship. You need to follow through. And maybe for others, I know some people said it was, say, articulating goals or articulating concerns. Maybe for you as a mentor, this is where you need to be like, hey, we're going to sit down and have a discussion because the mentees, or maybe you don't have to say this to them, but you can have this internal monologue saying, hey, this is where I've had problems getting my mentee to perform a certain role. So I need to be more active about engaging them in this active role and making sure that in the future they're following through and actually performing and filling this role.
Does anybody want to comment on any of these? Yes.
It's especially hard when you get those mentees that won't accept responsibility, that they're the reason they're in that position. So I find it best to, when people are like that and they feel like it's someone else that got them in the position that they're in, to where they actually need mentoring and they have to become mandatory. I find it best to walk them through the steps that got them to that point, to help them realize that each tiny ripple led to where they are now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very useful skill that I never thought about before, but yeah, that could be a very good skill to use for difficult mentees.
And a very nice integration of Ripple into the theme of the conference, by the way. DeAndre.
I voted for being resourceful.
Okay.
A lot of the times I see like freshmen, and I was actually one of these type of freshmen. I see them like just go to class and then just go back to their dorms. I try to encourage them to maybe like take advantage of some of the resources around campus. like particularly, I'm over like the Black Male Initiative aspect of the mentoring, so I try to not try to, I mentor like all African Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to like persuade them or like push them to actually utilize the resources that are available to them. Like if some of them have financial issues, I'll tell them to go to the student support services and apply for book vouchers or tuition waivers, and I try to make them like aware of all of the opportunities that are available to them, like even jobs. So I try to push them towards that. And a lot of the times they take it in, but they still are kind of they walk with their heads down, and I try to like discourage them as much as possible.
You didn't say walk with their heads.
Their heads down, like they're not
Heads
being
down.
observant, they're not meeting new people. They're being robots back and forth to class to dorms. So that's not a good way to live college life.
No. Okay, thank you.
I was gonna say, I feel like following through and being responsible is kind of goes together, because I think the mentee needs to understand that if you ask them to do something for your next session and they don't do it, they're not really hurting us, they're hurting themselves, and they're wasting both of our times. So you're kind of helping them out and doing them a favor, and if they don't take advantage of that, then they're the ones that are gonna be hurt in the end. So following through is kind of on them.
Would anyone else like to add anything before we move on? Okay. So essentially our next one is establishing goals. So just by a show of hands, how many of you have been in a relationship with a mentee where it just felt stagnant, like you weren't getting anywhere, they didn't feel like they were making progress, and it was just, you're stuck? Okay, we have three. That's cool. Just continuing on with that, okay, the biggest thing you need to remember about goals is that only your mentee can set goals. You can tell them goals and give them ideas of goals, but in the end, if you're just telling them and they don't actually believe it, then the relationship is going nowhere and they're not actual goals. They're just empty statements in the air. So whenever you are in a relationship with a mentee, it is important for them to establish goals and you to actively facilitate that process. So essentially asking them, what are your goals? What do you want to get out of the college experience? What do you want to get out of the relationship with me? And also, it's good for you to make sure that whatever goals they do set are SMART goals, that they are realistic, that they are achievable, they are time bound, because often freshmen, they come into college with these really big grand ideas, but they fail to realize that there are a lot of small steps that will lead you to the grander goal and that are a lot more accomplishable, and it'll keep you stay positive too if you help them make sure that their goals are achievable, smart, time bound, and something realistic and achievable. So that would be our first point. Alright. So goals set the tones and the standards of the relationship. So if there are goals, you're going to be more successful. If there aren't goals, you're going to be stagnant, and both of you are going to be confused about what you want out of the relationship. 2. So mentees should be responsible for setting goals and going to the meeting. So make sure that they feel accountable and responsible for meeting with you, and also that they personally feel accountable for whatever goals they achieve for themselves or set for themselves. And 3, follow through to assess their goals and make sure they're accomplished. A lot of times, mentees set goals, but over time they tend to forget about them. And in that process, if say a mentee sets a goal for themselves and then they have a big upset, and you can be that person to say, hey, yes, this is a small failure, but look at all these other small steps you made to achieve progress, and that this is only a minor setback, but not an end. So if you're constantly setting goals and having this process of making a record for positive growth in them, then they're more likely to overall see your relationship with them as a positive, no matter what failures or setbacks may come in.
So, qualities of a successful mentoring relationship. Now we're getting kind of to the nitty gritty, to the nuts and bolts of this particular session here. Coming up, I'm going to show you a series of images, this being one of them. Okay? And I want you to take a look at these images and just what comes to mind. You know, say for instance, this one right here, it's like a couple having the cold shoulders, lack of communication. Next. Okay, I'm going to read this to you because I understand it's kind of difficult, but you can see that there's the person, the woman is whispering something into the gentleman's ear, and he's saying, I wonder what she says about me when I'm not around. Okay, next. And next, it wasn't me. Okay, talking about that lack of accountability, that's what comes to my mind. Next. Okay, so now, what I'd like for you to do is text which image best represents the relationship with your mentee.
What was the third one?
It wasn't me, this one? Oh, this one. This one. Okay. Balance, harmony.
So with this one, we don't want you to like be envisioning what your ideal relationship is. We want you to go off based off your experience you've had now. What is generally a picture that represents the positives and negatives of the relationships you've had.
I have 20 people that.
Hmm?
I have 20 students that I work with. I don't know how
Oh,
to answer that.
big one.
What do they generally lean towards? Do you have would you say a larger percentage towards one image or a larger percentage towards another?
That first image, you know, you really speak to communication, lack of communication. Relationship may be kind of cold. Perhaps the second image, you might have a mentee that talks a whole lot and not necessarily about the right kinds of things. The third image, being an image of harmony and balance. And then the hand says it wasn't me. So you might think of that as a lack of accountability, blaming, not my fault. Everyone finished?
It's 23. That's how many answers.
Okay, so let's have some conversation. We have enough time. We can go through each other. Let's start with this one. So I take this one as everybody's relationship with their mentees perfect. Is that right? So let's hear some comments on this one right here. Yes.
Okay, so I did that one, but it's not because I consider my relationships with them to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
One reason is because, like someone said over there, I have a lot of mentees, so it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
So I might experience with like 2 or 3, the one at the top where it seems like we're not really connecting sometimes, or honestly, I don't see too much of the second one, and the fourth one with accountability. It seems like for the most part, my mentees know when they mess up, and they don't really blame anyone else. They just don't really like show like any type of remorse. You understand?
Yeah.
Where I'm coming from? Like, so with the balance thing, like with my relationships with my mentees, it's usually like positive. So that's the reason why.
That's all right. Yeah, that's good. Let's hear some more. I'm interested. Yes.
With the balance side of it, kind of took it to me knowing when to be where to back off.
Okay.
I had a mentee in the past who actually told me she was getting annoyed because I talked to her too much. And I mentor for the honors program, so that might be part of it. She was pretty self-sufficient.
Okay.
But with the balance, it's figuring out, okay, when do I need to be there so that I'm not ignoring her, and when do I need to let her kind of figure things out on her own.
Okay. Yes.
I actually chose the first one because like a lot of my students who are required to be there, like they just are like, it's so a lot of times so hard to just engage them or make them wanna succeed or anything. They just kind of tell me the bare minimum.
Mhm.
that they have to tell me kind of thing.
Yeah. How are things going? Fine. Okay, how does that look? It's fine, okay. All right, let's go to the next thing. All right, and what we're gonna do is, this is my opportunity to play David Letterman here, okay? So I have the 10 habits of a challenging mentee, okay? The 10 habits. Except I'm not going in David Letterman's order, so. But anyway, we're gonna have some discussion on each of these, or maybe I'll have you pick out which one really stands out to you. Okay, so the first one is shopping list. Okay, so when you come in contact with your mentee for the first time, they have just a long, sundry list of items they want you to take care of, right? Okay, number 2, 24-hour access. They can call you 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when they need something, right? Number 3, gossip. Number 4, expect you to always have the answer. Number 5, lack of contributing. 6, lacks discretion. Number 7, plays the blame game. How about number 8? Whiny. Number 9, non-committal. How about number 10? Does not question. Okay? So, my question to you is, have you, and if you have, which one of these have you experienced during the course of your relationship with your mentees? Yeah.
I guess does not question, so like I feel like if someone's giving me advice about something, I'm gonna be like, and if it doesn't exactly like work with me, I'm gonna say, well, what about this? A lot of times they'll just like take in what I'm telling them or suggestions I'm making, and then they're not questioning them. I can't like alter them to fit them perfectly.
Okay, okay. Tell you what we're gonna do. I'm gonna kind of switch it up a little bit. I want you to do the think, pair, share again. I'm gonna take a couple minutes. I want you to kind of form your little groups again, if you would please, and just take a couple minutes and have some discussion around these 10 elements here, okay? And we'll come back and have some open discussion. For an hour or 2 or 3 or for a week or 2, but it's actually, in order for it to really work, it has to be sustainable. In order for it to be sustainable, you have to meet over at least, I don't know what your program requires, maybe it's a year, maybe 6 months. DeAndre, how long is your
It all depends. So it's for like every incoming freshman, they have to go through this program pretty much, and it's like 90 minutes each week.
for the semester or for a year?
For the semester, but if they end up like on academic probation, like regardless of the academic coaching, then they have to actually go another semester through the coaching as well.
Okay. But the point is that it's a commitment. Number 2, please. Flexibility. Okay. So they have to be flexible in terms of not just meeting, okay, but in case things aren't working out, the method or the goals, they have to be flexible enough to realize that they need to have a change in strategy. Okay? So if there's a lack of flexibility there, there's a potential problem. Number 3, mentoring is but one tool for development. Okay? One of the things you want to do is emphasize to your mentees that you're not the only resource there for them. Okay? There are other resources that they should be taking advantage of. That's going to help them to learn. It's going to help them throughout their undergraduate career. Number 4, openness. Okay, this is a big one. Okay, I call this the attitude category here, because sometimes mentees can get really upset when you're giving them good information. You're trying to help them. Okay, and sometimes you have mentees who might get an attitude, or they might object. And if you have an attitude, if you have a mentee that constantly objects or bring negative attitudes, they're not open to trying new strategies, new approaches, or they're not open to what you have to say, they're kind of closed-minded, that doesn't make for a very fruitful relationship. And number 5, ability to listen, and there we go, accept varying viewpoints.
Can you go back for a second, please?
Yep. Anybody else wanna take a picture? Go right ahead. Can I get in it?
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, that's a very good point. I'm going to give these to Landon Brothers, who's one of the coordinators, and they will put them on the conference website, so you'll have access to the slides.
Okay.
Yep.
So, to close out this portion of our presentation, we want to make sure that you get, you know, that we're not trying to say that there are good mentees that you should love and they're awesome people, and that there's bad mentees and there's awesome people. All mentees, they're young, they're predominantly freshmen or transitional students, so they all have their ups and downs, places where they're like really well developed and other places where they need help and assistance in growing. So don't put labels on your mentees if they're bad or good. Always try to, if they are lacking, say they're not as responsible, just try to help them grow in that area. And make sure, you want to make sure that you're helping your mentee grow and that they are being consistent as far as like when they're meeting with you, in responding to your emails or like information, say like you said, updates about when assignments are due, that they're looking at that on a consistent basis, and that they're informing you of their progress on a consistent basis, making sure that they're giving you honest information about how they're doing or if they're doing good or well or bad or however they're doing. Also, that they're being open and receptive to whatever information you're giving them or resources or even just campus life in general, because some mentees tend to like you said, they're robotic and they just go and they're not open to the whole experience of being in college and learning and growing. You want them to be accountable and follow through, so that be that with meeting with you, meeting with other people, or just going to class, making sure in all aspects they feel accountable for their success or failures, and that they are following through in all their endeavors. Be reflective, that they're consciously reflecting on their progress, and that they're positive about this reflection. You always want to make sure your mentees are positive about whatever they're doing, because positivity breeds success. And then seeking and developing their cultural capital. So this goes into like making sure that only are they engaged with you, but they're engaged in the classroom, they're engaged with their peers, and that they're seeking opportunities to help themselves grow professionally, socially, and academically. Continue. So strategies for success. Ooh. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're collaborating with your mentee and that you're not dictating to them. Because as mentors, we tend to want to give advice rather than ask probing questions and see what their insight is and help them to actually solve their own problems. Because we don't want to enable them, we want to empower students. So your mentors should be working with you to identify their issues and concerns. So you shouldn't go into a meeting saying, hey, you're failing chemistry. You should be like, let them talk about it. See how they feel about the class, and maybe that could be the real issue, and you're not jumping to conclusions about what their problems are. And then you're mutually working to solve them, so that you're not just giving them answers, because that does not help them grow, that does not empower them to find their own answers. You want to make sure that you're helping them seek answers, and that they're helping you solve their problems. Plan and implement strategies. You want to make sure that they're implementing strategies and that you're giving them the outlines and the tools to solve problems and do problem solving on their own. And that you are making sure that they have some assessment for success, so that they have a plan to say, hey, how do they know if they're actually doing good in the class? How do they know? So say some mentees, if it's a class, they'll get a bad grade on a homework assignment or a test, and they tend to think it's the end of the world. So you want to be there to make sure that they have some kind of realistic means of measuring their success, be it in a class or social setting or whatever they deem their goal to be, and that you are helping them to gauge that success and use whatever tool you gave them to assess their success.
And just one more thing, when it comes to being open, and I think Felicia touched on it, it's really important that they're open with their fears as well, what their issues and what their concerns are. If they're not open with that, there's no way you can help them. Okay? Matter of fact, you could be doing more damage than good. But they need to be open with whatever their fears are whatever their concerns, whatever issues or challenges that they're having, they need to be honest with you in that regard. So, we have some time for questions. About 3 minutes, 4 minutes?
I'd say it's
1 minute? Okay.
Your program is one-to-one mentoring, right?
No, our students have anywhere from 5 to 7 mentees or proteges assigned to them, depending upon whether they're a veteran peer mentor or they're a novice, they're first year.
I'm curious to know, how many people in this room have more than 7 student mentors? That explains a lot. Okay, thank you.
What does it explain? I'm not, I want to know.
That is too, the mental load is too heavy for that, for a student. You cannot possibly mentor more than 7 and be a student yourself in an education environment, especially if they're freshmen. Freshmen require more time. That mentoring period should only be 1 to 5. That's national.
Yeah, that's national? Yeah.
That's national data.
With us, it's, well,
Some of us it's tied to a course, so we kind of lead a session of the course.
Regardless, the mentoring fee should not be that many. You're still mentoring in some regard, whether it's tutoring, mentoring, academic, mentoring, peer mentoring.
so I'm going, I hate to do this, but I do have to have a few minutes for you to fill out your evaluations. Appears like I think I went over maybe by a minute or two. I apologize. So if you could please fill out.